every kid in the world is coping with something. Maybe it's loneliness, new school, not being the cool kid, feeling like a stupid Christian, maybe feeling like the bad Christian, anything. And they go to something and it feels a little bit better. Maybe it's a bowl of ice cream. The next day they feel sad. They're going to go back and be like, yeah, I remember that ice cream. So when you see a kid that seems to be repeating something and it's soothing them, they're probably coping with something, just like we all do. And that's where that attachment piece comes back. Love on them real hard. Just get real curious.
Hit them with a little bit of dopamine to keep them looking every second. They'll be second guessing, trying to meet the expectation of the age of information. The simulation will be so convincing they'll forget that they're alive.
Well, Paul, look, as we jump in today, why don't you just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you're currently doing?
Yeah, thanks. I don't know if this will be the long or the short version, but we'll just go with it. So I grew up in England, lived in France for a short time too. So kind of an interesting backstory for me. Moved to the US when I was about 26 to pursue a counseling degree, having done various ministry jobs, medical sales jobs, and realizing I really wanted to learn how to engage people more deeply. So I've been doing that ever since, professional counseling, but then also went on to do a PhD in counseling education. And now I teach at Covenant Theological Seminary in St. Louis, where I'm the director of the counseling program and still participate in private practice counseling work. And then on top of that, doing kind of some fun research, reading, teaching various kind of things, both to students, but also to the public too. So kind of a mixed bag, which is really fun. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Now, do you still have family over in France, England area?
Yeah, so my family is actually spread out now. My parents are in England. My brother lives in Sydney in Australia. So we're just kind of scattered all over the place and married into different cultures. And yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah. And it was interesting. I mean, you saying medical sales and kind of going from that to counseling. Seems like kind of a jump for me.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I still remember it. I was in an operating theater. I forget if you call that here the same thing here, but I was watching a surgeon at work. I was actually advising on the surgery because that's what I used to do. And I just kind of hit me. I was like, I don't want to watch people do stuff with people anymore. I want to engage them. I want to be the person doing things, but probably not like this guy, because this is kind of crazy what he's doing. He was actually a hip replacement surgery. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. But I was like, I want to work with people's hearts, which sounds maybe a bit cliche. And I don't know how it sounds, but it really hit me in that moment. I was like, yeah, I think I want to go do it. So we made the switch. My wife's actually from Memphis, so we basically came home for her. But for me, it meant moving to a new country and a whole new adventure, really.
Wow. It kind of shows just my brain, how it works. When I hear operating theater, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Right? I think of Seinfeld. Does anybody get that when I say Seinfeld in the Junior Men episode? That's what I'm picturing, and he drops the mint in him. So anyway, that's where my brain goes. But that's fascinating to think that's a significant jump, and to move all the way over. And as you said, you're professor now at Covenant, and you also serve as counselor. I mean, full-time counseling as well as professor. I'm just thinking of balancing those two things. That's a lot.
Yeah, great question. So my full-time day job is a professor of counseling, but because it's a active profession, they want you to be doing the work that you're teaching about, which makes sense to me. And I love doing that work with people, but also supervising young counselors and helping them grow in their skills. I do a lot of supervising, actually, and helping people really understand, what does it mean to sit with people, to wrestle with questions of life? How do you do that? How do you come alongside other people? So that's kind of a place where I really love the work, is getting to do that kind of stuff.
Wow. And so just from being a professor, from teaching, and then also sitting in the counseling chair, do you hear the word dopamine pretty frequently thrown out by students as well as people you're counseling?
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, it comes up a lot And well, people always have questions about it. So I have a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 9-year-old too. And so we've just jumped into the high school world. And I actually hear it more in social circles and this new school that my kids are at. You know, this is a school that is wide open to a whole range of people, but they're super intentional about how do we form kids? How do we shape them, grow them up? And they've been talking about things like dopamine and technology and AI and, all the traps that teenagers can find themselves in, even more than in the counseling room. But yes, it does come up. But if I'm honest with you, most people don't say the word dopamine. They say, why am I screwed up? Or why is life going wrong? Or help me, basically. And various other versions of that in the church where people are just freaking out and they're like, this is painful. Life is hard. But dopamine does come into the picture pretty quickly, right? This sense of habit forming and everything that's connected to it. So strictly, dopamine is a neurotransmitter, right, is what it technically is. And all that means is a chemical that's in the brain. I mean, it goes around your body in different ways, but primarily in your brain. And what it does is it gives us, it's part of the mechanism in our body that gives us this experience of kind of like, I like this. This feels really good. I want more of this. That's how we feel it. So it kind of feels a little bit like a rush, but it feels like pleasure. And it's basically a neurotransmitter that operates in the brain and helps people go, that's something good. I should do more of that. So what it does actually is it reinforces good experience. So dopamine gets released when something's new, exciting, or feels good, right? And so actually, if you have something that's new and exciting, even if it's a negative thing for you in the long run, your brain goes, I like that. Because we just work like that. That's actually how kids learn, right? Is they come into contact with new things. And so their brain goes, oh, new, that's fun. That's why they go after stuff and break things and mess around with everything. And we keep doing it when we get older. So yeah, you end up going, oh, this is kind of fun. It's new. And so you keep wanting to go back to it. And so that's why people end up, stuck on video games or on their phone or pornography or whatever else, right? It's because it gives your brain this hit of energy and your brain goes, oh, I want that again. That was a thing that I now remember, gives me a hit of energy, a hit of feel good, whether from the outside it's a good thing or a bad thing. And so, yeah, it kind of locks you in like that.
Well, and maybe too, shifting a little bit, but talking about this, I mean, from a Christian perspective, as Christians, what are some biblical foundations, theological foundations, biblical truths that we need to have as we talk about dopamine? I mean, it's part of our body. It's the way God has designed us. It's a chemical God has created. And so maybe some helpful, just biblical categories for us as we're thinking about this and talking about this.
Yeah, I mean, you named it, right? The first one is, the big technical word is anthropology, but basically the way God made us, made our bodies and what they're supposed to be, he designed us to have this experience where we go, this is good. I like this. And actually in the New Testament in particular, you see God ordering the church and the way that we are to interact, and Jesus teaches on it. And there's this picture of life that emerges that actually when you think about dopamine in that picture, in that story, it's supposed to go, oh, I like this. This is good. And reinforcing these actions of connecting to others, connecting to a body, finding life meaningful in ways that actually in our cultural moment, not so much. We kind of got a whole different way of seeing the world. So the first one's really that anthropology, how are we made? But my second category is actually this. It's like, what is the story of life? And the Bible has a really profound, wonderful story for what are you here for? What are you made for? So actually teaching people and helping people to understand what is that story? What are you engaged in? Why are you here? Really changes the whole conversation about how do you want to think about dopamine?
Hey there, this is Brent Corbin, Executive Director for RYM. Thank you so much for joining us on this season of the RYM podcast as we explore the effects of the God-given gift of dopamine on all of our lives in this technological age. Our podcast is just part of our array of resources which we provide to the church and parents in the church and anyone seeking to invest in the lives of young people. So head over to rym.org/resources to see what we have for you there. And our resources are themselves just a part of our array of offerings for the church. We also offer summer youth conferences. This summer we will have 9 conferences from coast to coast where churches can bring their youth students and youth groups, and they can learn alongside one another with over 15 hours of biblical instruction, interaction, as well as some serious fun along the way. We even have some openings this summer, so head over to rym.org/conferences to learn more about those. And if you or someone you know is looking to develop in your skills and understanding of how to think critically and effectively about how to minister to and care for youth, then you'll want to check out our RYM training initiatives to see if there's something there for you. So whether you're brand new in youth ministry or you've been in the game a long time as a minister or as a parent or a volunteer, we suspect there will be many ways for you to benefit from our decades of combined wisdom and experience in this space. So head over to rym.org/training to learn more there. As you've heard, our website is full of information that we hope is useful for you and for your church. So head over to rym.org, and if you'll scroll down to the bottom of that homepage and sign up for one of our newsletters that's applicable to you, you'll stay up to date on the latest of all that we have to offer. Now back to the show.
I mean, dopamine, again, I'm the ignorant one, but associated with, I know it can be associated with pain from what I've read, as well as pleasure. I mean, God's the inventor of pleasure. He invented beauty as he created the world and all of these things that we can enjoy. And so, Paul, maybe going back to, you said kind of beginning anthropology maybe, and then also just kind of the beautiful story of Scripture. You said you had some other framework to kind of think through that. What are some of those other things?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So one of the key things that we're kind of moving that way in our conversation in general, actually, as we kind of go back and forth, but is really thinking about what is the context for relationship and what is the context for being understood and in relationships, but then also in that big story. So understood by other people and then also understood by ourselves. So how am I navigating any given day? So you end up getting really practical really fast with these categories, going from what is your biology to what is the story we're living in, and then where am I and what am I going through, and how am I connected in the midst of it? And dopamine's playing a part in all that. So the trap here in my mind is getting into a dopamine conversation rather than a how do we live well conversation. It's like dopamine becomes this really cool buzzword at the moment, but actually it's just a part of my body just as much as a whole bunch of other stuff is that can also go wrong. So that's kind of almost the categories are not necessarily dopamine related, they're life related, and dopamine's weaving through them.
I guess it's kind of coming back to what you were saying about even your children in school. They're talking about dopamine without even knowing it. There's a sense in which, I mean, tell me if this is correct or not. We're becoming a little too fixated on the word dopamine, and we just need to maybe be speaking in broader categories as we're talking about it without explicitly naming it, perhaps.
Yeah, and it's kind of like any pendulum swing. I would be careful to not go too far because we could forget then, dopamine matters, right? How we engage ourselves. So I appreciate what you're saying, and it becomes this balance. Is well, as people, we can really think about and consider how are we living, how are we walking with others as they live, how are we growing people up, kind of thing. And yeah, dopamine's a part of it. So let's talk about it and learn about it, but not make it the thing we just worry about and focus on at the same time. So it's kind of like, yeah, my kids at school, right? They come home and they say, oh yeah, we had this cool assembly and this guy was telling us all about how AI is going to change the future and it's going to change our job market and we need to be preparing for that. And my eldest was like, I was kind of freaking out about it. I was like, okay, here we go. We could start talking about neurotransmitters if we want to and what that energizing piece is. And then she goes, well, I love musical theater, so maybe I should go all in on that. And she gets excited. You see it in her face. She kind of like gets a little bit flushed with that energy. And you're like, there's dopamine right there if you want to get technical. But really for me to engage her is to sit there with the anxiety about changes, to sit there with, okay, like, what are you doing with the good of that and the bad of it as it changes your world? And then she has her dance lesson later that day. She has a voice lesson because she's super into musical theater, right? And so she's getting dopamine hits as she goes to her lessons, and she comes back out and she says, yeah, I'm really going to go for it. I'm going to do this stuff. And she reflects back on the conversation about the changing world. And I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. And we're just slowly walking through, okay, as you go to lessons, you're going to be more invested in this. It's going to make you think this is kind of where it's at. You're going to feel the energy. And then by the next day, when you don't have your lessons and your dopamine's lower, she's kind of more like, well, I don't know, maybe science is good too. So it changes the way she's interacting with those days. I don't know. I'm kind of maybe going off on a bit of a rambly tangent here, but
This is
kind of want to
helpful.
put it into the picture of life. This is how it works.
Yeah. I think it's everything you're saying is very helpful, and I appreciate it too. Just like you said, the pendulum, be careful not to just swing it too far and not talk about it at all, that it's a part of, as we said, a way in which God has made us. And maybe even going back to, in the context of, as you're talking about your children, Paul, and just thinking of how powerful it is, and kind of educating parents on, as they talk to their children about this powerful chemical in the body, maybe something along those lines.
So one of the first things that I think we can do talking to our kids is helping them just to really start to notice how stuff grabs their attention, how stuff makes them feel good, and how they relate to it. So just real basic stuff like, oh, you really enjoyed this thing, right? Or like saying to my son, like when he has a soccer game or he plays violin too, you know, he comes out of his recital and he's real jazzed. It's like, oh, you really enjoyed that. Like you feel really good about it. Yes. And so actually, I don't necessarily need to go for dopamine like all the time with him, but helping him go, hey, there's some stuff that's really appealing to you. Or as we start talking about what it's like to be attracted to other people, right? To notice sexuality coming online. It's like, hey, yeah, like your body's made to do these kind of things where you notice other people and you're kind of curious about it. And I'll just tell him simple stuff like it's doing stuff in your brain. And I know it's dopamine. And I think as we get older, we can add more of those words in. You know, understanding is helpful, but understanding has to be paired with, you know, the human experience of it. It's like God made us for this good thing. This picture of shalom, of a peaceful, rich, wonderful, engaged life. Like part of that is having your parents see you and love you and delight in you, or having your church do that, or being connected to friends, like all these really cool things. And we talked earlier about when is it missing? We kind of named that idea and we're right there now. It's like we're made for good things. And when we don't have good things, we don't feel good, just to put it really simply. And so we hunt it out. We go, oh, actually, if I kind of scream in your face, I get some attention. And it does connect you, but it don't feel too good. But it's better than nothing. It's better than total disconnection. And I think that's part of that big biblical story is we live in the midst of the fall. We live in this painful experience where it's not all as it should be. Things aren't going right in relationships. Things aren't going the way we were built for. And so we kind of find ways to try to get what we want, get what we need, feel better, soothe ourselves. Dopamine kicks in. And we're right back around to where we started. We end up on negative behaviors. Maybe it's screaming at our parents, or, I mean, we said it before, but all kinds of sexual acting out, smartphone use, video, like compulsive use of anything can ramp up because it's giving you something. It's like a really small picture of what you're built for.
Mm. You use the word, when we hunt it out, when we go after, we're trying to find whatever that pleasurable experience was, whatever. I mean, even the warm experience, like you said, comparing that to the excitement as well as even conflict, you're saying can draw that out. Am I correct in saying that the more you get it, the more you build up a tolerance to it, and you have to get more of it to kind of get some of those same experiences? Is that right? Or could y'all unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, in a strict sense, it's true. Like in a scientifically measurable way, that is how we work, right? If you give us anything en masse, our body adjusts to it. So you could do that with sugar in your bloodstream, right? But so it works like that. You get enough dopamine. We'll take the video game example, right? It's kind of intense. So you get a lot of dopamine. If you get used to that, you feel pretty low without that dopamine surge. We talked about all of life bumps your dopamine a little bit, or can do. So when you go and you eat dinner, you get like a little dopamine hit because it feels good to eat. But if you're used to video game intensity dopamine, then dinner doesn't really register so much. Maybe that conversation with your dad who cared about your day doesn't register so much because I want video game intensity dopamine. And so we see that a lot with smartphones, right? People are just looking for things that are more intense over time. And that's where also these problems escalate. And they end up sitting with me and they're like, I'm doing this crazy stuff now. And actually, to me now, I'm like, I don't think it's crazy. It just says that you've been really hunting for something and it's kind of gone out of control a little bit, but I don't think you're crazy.
Well, I think about this just again, as a Christian, but I'm also thinking about children all the time, parents, just trying to teach my children. But, as Christians, we would say one of the most important practices we can have is being in the Word, praying to God, sitting still, being still in His presence. I mean, how is dopamine impacting just that practice? I mean, this seems like a dumb question in a lot of ways. I mean, you use the video game example, compare that to sitting alone with the Lord and in the Word. Yeah, just maybe talking about that, just the ability to sit and be still before the Lord.
I don't think that's a dumb question. I think it's a fantastic question. It's like a perfect question for our technology age. Kids have 100 things that are more immediately stimulating than sitting in front of a Bible. And it's a real problem, right? It's because one of the things you're hoping for as we sit in prayer or in Bible or in just the space with God, right? And we're just attending to that, is that we're discovering more of what we're about, right? You read scripture not just to be able to quote back verses, but to learn what God's about and who you are in the midst of that. And so you're taking on that story. And that's not always just as exciting as pulling out the video game and getting dopamine hits. So there is some dopamine in there, right? As you see yourself in a bigger picture and your bigger story, and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. There's dopamine to that, for sure. But actually, one of the beautiful things about sitting with scripture and praying is you're exposing yourself to the reality of all of life. And that's the good and the bad, the hard stuff. And that doesn't always feel good. And this is the rub, right? Is we actually have a culture, a society that really prizes feel good, seek pleasure. And your kids, I hate to say it, my kids too, they're getting that message 20 times every hour, right? Go feel good, go feel good, go feel good, go feel good. And they're not getting the message, it's okay to sit with the distress. Actually, it's good for us to acknowledge where we are in the world, that the fall is real. That's not a sexy message. It's not appealing. And guess what? Most of us parents don't want that either because we're in the same culture. I'm kind of went off on a big tangent here from your question, but it just is so important. This holistic idea that learning to live in the balance of what we really have and being honest about it is so, so important. I would suggest that teaching our kids to do that in the safety of our relationships is probably one of the best parenting things we can do. Helping them to acknowledge the good and the hard and face it realistically, honestly, knowing that it doesn't always feel good. That's just the best life lesson.
I know Anna Lemke, who will be a guest on this podcast as well, in her book, Dopamine Nation, talked about the importance of boredom. But yeah, you talking about being able to sit in that distress and that tension, to go back to what you said of the already and the not yet. And maybe this kind of gets us into just some healthy practices to try to regulate dopamine. I'd love just any thoughts of, for adults, as you said, we're in the midst of this as well, seeking pleasure all the time, just as much as our kids, but also in teaching our children. Just any thoughts of kind of regulating?
we do a lot of things that we say we should regulate. One of the king questions I think we can ask for ourselves and then teach our kids is, what are we missing or not engaging with because we've got these things that we've decided are good or pleasurable? We might have got there by accident, like my phone is my friend idea. We kind of slipped into it, but what do I miss in the light of it? And you named a beautiful one, like this deepening relationship with my kid. I'm missing out on that. And actually the unplugging idea, it feels negative. We can almost turn it into, well, when I go walk my dog, rather than having headphones in and listening to something, maybe even this podcast, maybe you turn it off and you actually engage with the beauty of the world. The world is so much more beautiful than our conversation. That's not to say what we're talking about is not important, but that's kind of often how we get distracted. So I think the practical application of that is take inventory of what are the really rich, wonderful things that are not in your world. And ask yourself, how do I make space for those? How can I go enjoy some of them? I gave you an example, like walking around, enjoying the beauty of nature. Like, I love that. And I forget it because of work and busyness and tech. And then I go do it again. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. But it does take some thoughtfulness to do it. I think for parents to really helping kids understand or setting a household tone of we're going to care about what we do. And then you name some really cool specifics, right? 30 minutes in the beginning of the day, and we can regulate all different things. But cultivating over time, what do we want to be about as a family, and having those positive conversations versus just negative. So like, how do we want to spend our time together? And then as you get older kids, like a super practical, like one example of that is you say to your kids, hey, when you're done with your homework or whatever, come hang out, come be with us. We're going to be in the living room or the whatever. We're going to be over here. Come chat. Right. So it's cultivating these things that we know that we are made for, that are life-giving and sustaining, that you do find all over scripture, and kind of carving out ways to start establishing new patterns. So yes, we got to cut some stuff out and make space, and that's really important. And we got to cultivate and build good things too. I think we could probably throw out huge lists of many more different places to do this. I'm curious if that would be helpful.
I think, yeah, all of these are helpful that I'm hearing. And, just kind of the broad category of intentionality. You don't have to be too intentional about a lot of those, right? Like you can just kind of get lost in the video games. You can get lost in streaming and the other things. It's like they require effort. They require some discipline.
I think it's not, you're saying it's so important, right? That the tech that we've got built for us right now is designed for it. It's meant to be intrusive. It's meant to grab you. It's meant to play the next video to keep you going. I mean, there's lawsuits about it right now, TikTok's getting sued. It's like, you're destroying our children's brains. Like that's basically the legal argument. And it's because it's powerful. And I think understanding that, and it's unfortunately difficult to be intentional at first, because you are missing out on your intense video game hit or whatever it is. And I think every parent needs to know too, when you start to make these adjustments and tweak these things, it's not going to go smoothly at first. When I say, hey kids, we're going to be over here. If you're done with your stuff, like come hang out. They don't do it straight away. And it's okay to be slow and patient, letting kids adjust. A family has to reorganize. Kids have to restructure. So just taking things out is painful. And you feel the loss, you feel the gap. Just like try taking a small kid and not giving them dessert for one day. If they're used to it, they're going to throw a tantrum at you. So expect it. Expect your teenagers to get grumpy when you set screen limits, right? That's why we got to talk to them about why and the upside, and point them to the good things too.
Yeah, that's well said. And just encouraging. I mean, the pain that there's a purpose on the other side. It's like, I even think of, it seems like you hear so many people talking about the cold plunge right now and doing the cold plunge and just, having so many different ways to do that. And from what I've heard, it's the coming out of the cold plunge that actually just dopamine kind of through the roof. You experience the relief of the pain from the cold plunge. And so it's kind of maybe, I don't know if this is a direct correlation, but encouraging the parents, like you said, bringing a child off of sugar or other things. There's going to be this tantrum, this awful thing, but on the other side, you're actually going to have maybe some regulation, or in the long run, it's a little more pleasurable to try to have those conversations and engage in that.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Like one of my kids wasn't at school yesterday because of President's Day, and they had some friends coming over to hang out. And right before it, they were kind of like, "Oh, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have done this." And then when they left, this kid was like through the roof, just like so happy and bouncy. And so, one of the things I actually did was just notice that. It was hard at the beginning, the idea of it, because you wanted to do these other things, but you had a really good time. And that kid was kind of like, yeah. So like maybe repetition.
Mm. This is good. I know we're needing to wrap up, but are there any kind of trailing thoughts to throw out there?
Every kid in the world is coping with something. We're all coping with something. And your kids are coping with, maybe it's loneliness, new school, not being the cool kid, feeling like a stupid Christian, maybe feeling like the bad Christian, anything. Coping with whatever, and they go to something and it feels a little bit better. Maybe it's a bowl of ice cream. The next day they feel sad, they're going to go back and be like, yeah, I remember that ice cream. So when you see a kid that seems to be repeating something and it's soothing them, remembering they're probably coping with something, just like we all do. And that's where that attachment piece comes back. Love on them real hard. Just get real curious. I actually taught a class in January. Sorry, I'm branching off into a little story here. One of the guys in the class said to me, he's a pastor somewhere. He said, well, what do you do when you find your kid? You walk in and find your 15-year-old looking at porn. And I said, just go hug him. Go hug him first. Let them know, like, it's okay. We can deal with the content problem, right? The negative behavior thing, but you got to go meet them first. See they're coping. That's how we're going to deal with cravings, is when we meet people in the midst of the pain of it. Let's cultivate a family where we can talk about this. And then the next step of that is talking to your kid about what you are concerned about. But again, that non-judgmental way of like, hey, what is going on for you? Like, this is, and they might not have any idea. So I'd expect that too. And then invite you. Ask them, is it okay if I support you with this? Right? So you can do that kind of stuff. If you're getting to the point where you are having conversations in your family, you are connected to other people, there is a back and forth dialogue and you're still really struggling, right? Then you might start thinking about counseling. But the question is, okay, are we seeking out counseling, like you said, just to change what this child is doing? If that's what you're doing, think about and get friends to help you. How could we structure our world differently and do that, right? You might be able to do that first. And if a child is starting to look really sullen, really lethargic, unable to go to school, and just, they're like not the child you knew, right? They're really what we might call depressed, or really in a really bad way, or talking about harming themselves in any way. That's probably when they do need to go see someone specifically for the child. But I'd encourage any parent, any family, be involved in it. It's not like you have a broken kid. It's like, oh, you have a normal kid who's responding to a difficult world. And so actually the parents on the front line of helping them change. And it just expect change to be slower with teenagers, because they've learned a pattern in their family and with you and in the world. So don't expect change overnight. That's hard for us as parents. I'm the first one in line to be like, man, I want this different today.
Mm-hmm. For sure. But no, I love what you're saying. I mean, really just emphasizing the community, the church, and also just encouraging those parents that doesn't mean you have a broken kid. It means they're living in this broken world, trying to process some very difficult, hard things. And then that last one, just being patient. Us reminding how patient the Father is with us as we strive to be that way with our own children. Because yeah, I'm guilty of the same, as you were saying, Paul. I know we need to wrap this up. It looks like you're about to say something though.
Yeah, you made me think about something that's kind of been on my mind a lot recently. Is we can tend to use the wisdom of Scripture to try and teach people to correct. I would urge parents, live the wisdom of Scripture in your family first. So take on what you see in Scripture and live it out and show your kid rather than tell your kid. And that can make a big difference to our attitude to them and how they perceive us. So I want to throw that in there real quick.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, because I needed to hear that. That was great. Paul, thanks so much for just sharing your wisdom, sharing your time, and coming on the podcast today.
Absolutely. It was fun to do it. Thanks for asking me to do it.
Wake up and break yourself out of here. Don't be one of the cold souls who disappear. Stop believing and telling the lie. Why don't you look your life in the eye?
Thanks for listening to the RYM podcast and this season of the Dopamine Delusion. Special thanks to the Arcadian Wild for the use of their song Dopamine, and to our editors Joe Deegan and Virginia Stroud. Be sure and check out the show notes for links, resources, or books mentioned in today's episode. If today's topic resonated with you, please take the time to share this episode with a friend who might find it beneficial. For more information about our student conferences, youth leader training, and other resources, be sure to visit rym.org. See you next week for another episode of the Dopamine Delusion.